Today we're making secret wheat, and we're going to turn it into hamburger buns. Secret wheat is my recipe that I came up with. The reason it's called secret wheat is it has white whole wheat flour in it, 25%, and it looks like white bread, but it tastes a lot better, and even the pickiest of eaters will eat wheat bread if you feed it to them as secret wheat. Here we go. I prefer to weigh my ingredients. Use a trusty digital scale. We'll set our units to grams, zero out our scale, and start putting in the ingredients. First ingredient is bread flour. I'm gonna give you the instructions for 6 buns, but I'm actually gonna make 12, so we'll do the first measurements and then we'll go back from there. All right, 103 grams of bread flour. And I like to sift my flour in. I've got a dough hook in the KitchenAid. The next ingredient is going to be King Arthur's white whole wheat flour. I really like this flour. It's very nice. It's light and it's not super duper wheaty flavored. 90 grams is what we're gonna put in there. Just dump it right in the sifter. Next we have AP flour. Again, it's King Arthur. This is the flour I've been using for 25 years. 188 grams of AP flour. Next, we're going to put in an ingredient that might not be as common to you, whole milk powder. Whole milk powder is a great substitution for liquid milk, which I used to use, but milk powder seems to work better in baking. 30 grams of milk powder. And one more, a little bit unusual ingredient coming right up, powdered apple cider vinegar. We're gonna put 2 grams of powdered apple cider vinegar. Right now, we're just sifting this all together. Apple cider vinegar is just kind of a weird thing, right? So the reason why we put it in is simply because it is a natural preservative. It slightly acidifies the bread, making it last longer. So there, you learned something today. I've been experimenting with this for a couple of years, and it really does make a difference on the longevity of your bread. I'm going to use some filtered water, and we're gonna need 240 grams of that. One thing to note, grams pretty much equals milliliters, so if you don't want to weigh your water, you can just use your eyeballs and measure out to 240 grams. All right, then I'm gonna warm this up. So I use the microwave. You can use a kettle, however you like. It's a little bit harder to measure hot water because you spill it all over the place. So I measure it cold and then throw it in the microwave. I wanna get it to about 110 degrees. While that's going, we'll talk about thermometers. This is an instant read thermometer. Super crucial for accurate temperatures fast. It's also really useful later when we bake our bread because we want to check our internal temperature. So if you don't have one of these, get one. Well, look at there, 112. That'll be fine. I just don't want to go above 120. So we're gonna add our water while the dough hook is spinning. Setting 2 is where I wanna be. We're just gonna make sure that all the flour has at least come into contact with some water. Because our next step is autolyse, and autolyse is what makes this recipe kind of special. Okay, got our dough starting to come together, but notice that there is no yeast, salt, or sugar in the recipe yet. So it'll be a little bit sticky, as you can see here. I like to just kind of push it together into a ball. You can leave it in the stand mixer for longer, but it's not really necessary. All we want to do is make sure that it's fairly consistent texture and that it will go into a container and not be just like super sticky. So we have our proofing container. This is a Cambro. I use these all the time. I use them for my flour storage as well as for proofing. And the next step is autolyse, but I'm gonna do what's called a warm autolyse. I don't think I invented this, but I'm the only person that I know that does it at this moment. So all I'm doing is putting in the oven, and if your oven has a proof setting, which mine does, that raises the temperature of the oven to 100 degrees. It's not so hot that it would kill yeast if there was yeast in there, but it accelerates the hydration of the dough. And I'm gonna leave that in there for 30 minutes. So I'll be back in just a little while. So it's been 30 minutes and our warm autolyse should be done. Yep, looks great. So maybe you didn't notice before, but I'll show you now. The dough was in a pretty tight ball, and as you can see from the autolyse, it has relaxed significantly. That means the glutens have strengthened and the dough is relaxed. Makes it a lot easier to work with. See? A lot of times it takes a good bit of kneading to get to this point of extensibility. That's the reason for the autolyse. Technically speaking, the way autolyse works is that you are hydrating the dough, but you're making sure that all the flour has a chance to hydrate before the process of kneading it. But you don't want it to proof, so you don't add any yeast, and you don't want the gluten to be strengthened, so you don't add any salt, and you don't have any yeast to feed, so you don't need any sugar. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to knead in the ingredients that I left out. First ingredient will be yeast. This is 7 grams of yeast for those of you making a single recipe and 14 grams for those who are making a double. See, it's already starting to form a ball. Just add it in there and it will be kneaded into the dough. Now you can do this by hand, but I do not recommend it because the last step will be quite difficult. Once your yeast is kneaded in, you want to add 6 grams of kosher salt, or 12 grams if you're doing a double. Same thing, you just want to add it kind of slowly so that it doesn't end up in a big clump in your dough and it gets worked through the dough as the machine kneads it. And lastly, 25 grams or 50 grams of cane sugar, depending on your recipe. Just take a look and make sure that your dough is coming together. It's a lot easier to work with after an autolyse. It's already pretty smooth, which is something that a lot of times takes, 20 minutes of kneading to get to this point. Autolyse really saves the day on knead time. Not quite there yet, but we're getting there. Our last step is adding unsalted butter. This is a gradual thing. Do not put it all in at once. Trust me, you will not like the results. So our recipe calls for 56 grams, which is half a stick of an American stick of butter. But I'm making a double recipe, so I'm just gonna use the whole stick. When I say a little bit at a time, I really mean it. I'd say I'm probably putting it in at around a teaspoon at a time. This is softened butter. This is not melted butter. And I just usually kind of get it up on the side there and then drop it in. You'll see immediately the dough starts changing textures. But you want to work it into the dough so it doesn't separate. So if your dough does start to separate a little bit or get smashed down into the bottom, just turn it up one notch on speed. It'll use the force of the machine to work the dough way faster and more efficiently than you can with your own two hands. You can probably see some of the butter sticking to the sides of the bowl. You can scrape it down. Don't worry, it will get absorbed into the dough. You can probably see the butter sticking to the sides up here at the top. If that happens, just turn the machine off, scrape it down. We are almost there, so hang with it. Look how smooth that is. Got a little butter on the spiral here. We'll just take that off and rub it into the dough. Wow. It's just beautiful. If we let this relax a little bit, I know we're already at window pane. That's not necessary. As you can see, it's not tearing apart too easily, but we'd have to let it relax a little bit, which is exactly what we're going to do in the proofing container. Look how beautifully smooth that is. So we're going to put it in the proofing container. We're going to stick it in the oven to proof. We'll need to let that rise for about 30 minutes. That's typical time for instant yeast in an oven that's 100 degrees. If you have to leave it on the countertop because you don't have that feature in your oven, no big deal. It's gonna take a little longer, but it still will happen. So just let it proof until it is doubled. Our dough's been proofing for 30 minutes, so let's check it out. Yep, looks great. Just gonna pour it right out onto the countertop, just like that. Looks good. Got some bubbles, but no big deal. We're gonna squeeze those out in just a second. So this is 1,468 grams of dough. 1,468 divided by 12 is 12 little lumps at 122 grams apiece. And you'll start to be able to eyeball it. Apparently I can't today. And then just set them off to the side. You don't have to shape them yet. In fact, you don't want to shape them yet. I'll show you why in a minute. My wife always kind of laughs watching me do this. She doesn't understand why I want to be so accurate, but if you want to have enough dough for all the buns, you got to be pretty accurate. Man, this one should be dead on. Look at that, beautiful. So now that we have our buns portioned out, we're going to shape them and then we're going to put them in a pan. A pan looks like this. This is a hamburger pan, hamburger bun pan, and it came from USA Pans. I think I bought it from King Arthur Flour directly, but it's made by USA Pans. Now we're gonna shape our dough. So here's how it works. This is super simple. Ready? Take your hand, put it over it, kind of like a C shape. Roll your hand like this. And look at there. Nice little bun shape. Pop it in. All right, so you want to be pretty quick about this. And I'm kind of curling my hands or my fingers under. You can't really see it, but the shape is like this. You could leave your buns just like that, but if you don't want them to end up too tall, simply use your fingers to compress them in the middle. They're gonna rise the most in the middle, so press down in the middle. And if you were just doing this on an open baking sheet, you'd still get the same shape. They probably would touch each other and stick together a little bit, so you wouldn't have a perfectly round shape in the end, but that's no big deal. Once we've pressed them down, we'll leave them here in a nice warm spot and we'll cover them with a tea towel. We're gonna let those rise right here and just let them do their thing. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the oven on and we'll set it to 350 Fahrenheit. It's been 20 minutes. The oven is preheated and our second proof is complete. Give it the old poke test. It rebounds, but it rebounds slowly and it leaves a slight depression. That's perfect. The very last step, it is an optional step, but I like to do an egg wash. Easy to do, just crack an egg into the vessel of your choice. Grab a brush. Scramble said egg. Some people add water to egg wash. I don't ever do it. I don't think it really matters that much. And you get a really nice golden color. Brush the tops. You can just use egg white if you want, but I don't know what I'd do with the rest of the eggs, so I'm going to use the whole egg. All right, set that aside. I see scrambled eggs in my future. We're gonna take our buns and pop them in a 350-degree oven. All right, I will see you in about 15 to 16 minutes. That's about how long it takes. And then we'll check our temperature. It could take up to 20 minutes, but typically 15 minutes is long enough. Now we're gonna go check the temperature of our buns internally. We're hoping for 195. All right, they're done. Look at that. I like to kind of just shake the pan a little bit to get the buns to get loose, and then you can pop them right out. I'm picking them up very gently as to not leave an impression in them. And there you have it. Beautiful, lovely buns. And if you want them to be very soft, I recommend that you cover them up with a tea towel as they cool. They need to cool to 100% room temperature cool. So don't mess around with that. Trust me, if you cut into it early, it'll be gummy on the inside. All right, that's all for now. Enjoy your beautiful burger buns once you make them at your house. I'm Chef Dave Palmer. This recipe and other recipes are available at chefmylife.com. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe.